Today we're going to do Unit 1, Day 3, and the topic for Unit 1, Day 3 is going to be midpoint of a segment. So we went over segment addition, now we're talking about midpoint. So this is really the key word, midpoint. And your learning target will be you will be able to find the coordinate of the point halfway between 2 points, which is called the midpoint. So those are these are the vocabulary words you guys have to pay attention as you're reading. If something said it's in between, it's just in between. And it can be anywhere closer to the endpoints. But if it says midpoint, that means it is a point. It says here, the midpoint of AB is a point equidistant or halfway between A and B. So make sure you guys pay attention to those vocabulary words. So the first one, what is the midpoint of EF? Okay, so E is here, right? And F is here. So what is halfway between the two? So before we can even find out what is halfway, what's the distance between E and F? How far apart are they? So we can see 1, 2, 3, 4. So if I want to cut 4 in half, you know for sure it's just going to be 2 in each side, right? That's what we will do. So the midway, halfway in the middle, will be this point, right? This is going to cut EF in half. So what is that location? This is 2. This is, so let me change it into a pen. So this is 3, 4, 5, and 6. So where's the location at? The midpoint of EF is 0.4. Okay? So that's what you guys have to do. Midpoint of DF. D is here. F is here. So it's kind of, now, okay, it's -1 to +6. So, what I usually do is count. What's the distance? I know we did it earlier, but to kind of help you, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So this one is an odd number, so halfway is just going to be somewhere in, because it would be 1, 2, 3 from this side, right? If I go from this side, it would be 1, 2, 3. So I have to go half a point somewhere here. So the point would be 2.5, okay? Because the distance is 7. 7 divided by 2 is going to be, no, well, it'll be 2.5 3.5 apart from each other. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3 and half. So 3 and half is what's going to happen. Okay. It just tells you how, the distance between each of them halfway. All right, so example 2 says find the coordinate of the midpoint of a segment with endpoint 2 and -5. So when it's not on a number line, what would be the formula we're going to use? It's easy. It's just going to be A plus B divided by 2. Okay, it doesn't need to be in absolute value because midpoint can be a negative number. So to find the distance, I'll just say A is 2, B is -5, whatever that number is, I will divide it by 2. That would give me the answer. So 2 plus -5 is -3, divided by 2 is, if you want to write it in decimal, you can put -1.5. So the same thing here. If we go back to example 1, D was -1, right? Plus F was 6 and divided by 2, right? So -1 plus 6 is 5 divided by 2. That gives you 2.5. So if you want to do it with the algebraic way where you add and divide it by 2, you can. If you want to do it just counting, okay, it needs to be 3.5 apart away from each other, that is also an option you can do. So the next thing we're going to talk about is going to be you can find the coordinate of an endpoint if I know the other endpoint and the midpoint. So this one gets a little bit difficult. So here, see, it says I can find the coordinate of point halfway, right? That's what we did here. We found the point that is halfway, right? That means they gave me the endpoints. I know where it starts. I know where it ends, but I want to know what is halfway, okay? But in the learning target 5, you will have an endpoint, see how, -1. You will know the midpoint, but you wouldn't know the other endpoint. And that's what you have to do. So there are different ways of doing it. I like, knowing, okay, how far did I travel to the right? Then I'll also travel to the left, kind of. That's one method. And then, it just kind of, you guys can figure it out or plug it in into the formula, right? Right here, see, we did A plus B equals to 2. So I know A, I don't know B, but I know the midpoint. So you can also do it as an equation. I feel like I'm rushing through this lesson. I'm going fast, maybe. I don't know. Anyway, I'll go over it again in class if you feel like I am really speeding through this lesson. If we know one point and the other point and the midpoint, we can find the other endpoint. So in this case, what I can do is I'm in a +3. How far do I have to go to the left to get to -1, right? I have to travel negative, so I'm going to the left. So from 3 to -1, it'll be -4 points, right? Then from 3 to the right side, I have to travel 4. So 3 plus 4, this would be 7. So this is one way of doing it. Just graph it and you can find it. The other one is, let's just use the formula. A plus B divided by 2 gives me the midpoint, right? So let's say your A in this case is your -1 plus B, I don't know. That's going to be my D, right? And when I divide that by 2, I should get the midpoint, which is 3. So -1 plus B, this is B, not a 6, equals to 3. So, well, let's do algebraically, get rid of the 2. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 2, right? So I have -1 plus B, because the 2 cancel out, equals to 6. Okay? Then what do I do? Plus 1 to both sides. B will be 7. Okay, so you as an individual learner, you can find different methods to get to the right answer. So you pick that method and try to solve it. All right, example C, 3 is kind of the same. If a segment has one endpoint, which is 12, and the midpoint is 7, find the other point. So I will just draw a line. The endpoint here is 12. The midpoint is 7. What is the other point? That's your X. So which method do you want to do? You want to know how far you travel from 7 to 12 to the right, and now you want to do it to the left. That's one method. Or you want to use the formula A plus B divided by 2 gives you the midpoint. So you try it, and we'll go over it in class. Okay? All right, so segment bisector. It's a line segment or array that intersect a segment at its midpoint. Okay, so we know 7 is the midpoint, right? So if I draw a ray like this, or if I just draw a line, and it's called bisect, it's cutting it in half. Okay, so the line, the intersection does not have to be right angle. So when it's bisecting, you don't necessarily need to be perpendicular to it. So draw a segment being bisected by a line, and draw a segment that is being bisected by a segment and a ray. So let me just draw my line first, right? Since like the highlighters are, so this is my line, and then this is my line. Okay, so this is my segment, right? Now I wanted to bisect the segment using a line, right? So I'm going to go to my line, and I need 2 arrows. This one, no. All right, I'll use the green one. So I want to bisect it. So, it's kind of, I have to kind of estimate which one is halfway. So maybe using a ruler helps. I don't know. But this is, I don't want to take too long trying to use the rulers. So, where is the ruler? Alright, come on, ruler. Usually it goes on the top, you see. And it's kind of hard to do it on here. Alright, I think it's easier to do it in class. So I'll kind of do it in class for you guys. But so I'm gonna move because it's taking too long for me to drag this with my. So I wanted to measure. Where's the? I don't want to rotate it. Alright, I need it. So I wanted to measure. Okay, so I can't measure, right? I can rotate it up because it's just I'm using the slate at home. If I'm using the smartboard, it's easier. All right, so I'll show you in class how to do this. So let's skip through this one, and because I wanted to kind of bisect it halfway so that it doesn't look like they're not in between. So we will also do this one. Draw a segment that bisects by line creating a right angle perpendicular bisector, and we'll go over that in class. All right, so example 4, okay, and this is what we're going to do. It says RS, so this is a good, perfect example. AB is a line segment, RS is a line bisecting it in half, okay? So RS bisect AB, so since I know the word bisect here, right, I know M here is the midpoint, okay? That tells me that AM is going to be congruent to MB. That automatically, without even doing anything, by just reading the statement, okay, knowing RS bisect AB, I know AM, the distance from A to M, is going to be the same between M and B. So now the question is, what is the length? So since I know because of the word that they gave me that they're equal, how would I set it up? I'll just say, oh, this is 2x plus 5 equal to 5x minus 7. Okay, that is what I need to do because a bisect, that shows that AM is congruent to MB. Okay, so now it's your turn. Solve for x. Okay, all right, let's go down. All right, so in this case, it says the coordinate on a coordinate plane. Now each point has uh, 2 coordinates, right? The x and the y. So the question is find the midpoint of -2 and 7. So j would be -2 and 7. That would be j. And then k will be +2, -1. So that would be k, right? So they want you to find the midpoint between the two, between these two lines. Okay? So you can kind of estimate that whatever point you're getting is going to be somewhere in this part, right? I don't know if it is exactly that, but to find the midpoint, there's a formula we're going to use. The formula is going to be, we're going to add the x's, so x1 plus x2 divided by 2, and y1 plus y2 divided by 2. That is the formula we're going to use. That's the midpoint formula. Okay, I should have wrote it down here. So that's going to be your midpoint formula, x1, so let me write it again, plus x2. So you add the x's, then you divide it by 2, comma, because you're going to get 2 coordinates. I'm going to add the y's, and then divide it by 2. So I'm going to get an x and y coordinate. All right, so now I'm going to erase this so that I can use this space to do the work. So what is the best thing to do is label. Okay, which one is going to be my x1? Does it matter? It doesn't. As long as you label the x as x1, This is y1. It's not x1, x2. This is x2, y2. If you flip it over, you name 2 as x2, it doesn't matter because you're adding. So I'm adding x1, which is negative 2, plus x2, which is positive 2. Divide that by 2, comma. I'm adding the y's, which is 7, plus negative 1, divided by 2. Okay? Sorry about the handwriting. So negative 2 plus 2 is 0. 0 divided by 2 is just going to be 0, right? And 7 plus negative 1 is 6, right? 6 divided by 2 is 3. So my estimation is kind of right. So it's going to be 0 and 3. So this is where the midpoint is. So sometimes it's good to estimate, okay, where is it going to be? If this is the line, where's that midpoint is? Because that helps you to see if you come up with an answer that is off the chart. Like if you come up with an answer that's here, you know what you did is wrong, right? This is no way it's going to be the midpoint. So I want you guys to kind of use your common sense to do it. So A, B, and C is asking find the coordinate of the midpoint of hx for each set, so try to do it. Example 7 is the tricky one. It says segment ST given T, but the midpoint is given. So this one you have to be careful. So if you know how to do it, go ahead and do it. But if it becomes too difficult, you don't have to do it. We will do it in class, okay? All right, that's about for today. I jumped to the next section, but I'll do the next video so that you guys have all the videos ready. All right, this took about 60 minutes, so.